welcome to the Bond Defender, the Range Rover Sport SVR and the unicornish Jaguar Cx75 hybrid hypercar. All three of them are in the new Bond film Spectre, and they've been prepped by Jaguar Land Rover's very own special vehicle ops. And today, for a very limited amount of time, I have the keys. First, the Defender Bigfoot. It's like a Defender, but bigger. For example, this one has 37-inch tyres, a 185 brake horsepower tuned engine, and so much more that it's worth doing a big screen overlay thing with all the details. So even though I've only got it for a short amount of time, and I can only drive it at 30 miles an hour, lest it get damaged and Jaguar Land Rover find me in my sleep and murder me, it's quite a wonderful thing. Everything's very familiar. It does feel like a Defender, which means it's chunky, it's big, you can grab at everything, everything feels quite solid. There are a few differences. This has a bit more power than a standard car, about 180 horsepower thanks to a jazzy new turbo. There's ropes over the bonnet, it's got its giant wheels which don't half make a racket, and they do make the ride on tarmac a bit bumpy, but on, say, snow, I imagine they'd be ideal. And it looks epic. There's a cage in the back, there's a cage on the outside, and as a thing, I absolutely love it. Only problem is, not only is the Defender ending its life, you can't buy one anymore, you almost certainly can't buy one of these, unless you turn up to the SVO guys with a lot of money and a very big smile on your face batting your eyelids. You're probably not likely to be able to get your mitts on one, which is a crying shame. However, this is only the start of JLR's Spectre offerings, because there's a couple more to play with, and both have very big, very silly engines that I'll probably also only be able to drive at 30 miles an hour, but still, it's enough. If the Bigfoot wasn't enough, how's about this, the Range Rover Sport SVR? Its 5-litre supercharged V8 engine produces 550 horses and kicks this thing from 0 to 62 in less than 5 seconds. This is the fastest production Range Rover ever built, and because it was built in the first place by the SVO guys, they didn't really need to do much to get it Bond ready, apart from some tyres and the brightest lights known to man, as you can probably see. Now, I'm not allowed to drive this particular car over 30-40 miles an hour, but I have driven one of these before, and it's otherworldly, because it's massive and it's heavy, but it moves unlike something this size really should. It's unbelievably fast. 0 to 60 happens in less than 5 seconds. Its top speed somewhere north of 160 miles an hour. It sounds absolutely incredible. You never see an SUV making that kind of noise. It just sounds dirty. It sounds a bit like a NASCAR, which, as far as I'm concerned, is a brilliant thing, because you always see cars like this going quite quickly, but you never really get to hear them because it's not part of the luxury experience and lifestyle, which tends to go hand in hand with them. But thanks to the magic of SVO and the fact I think they're all secretly hooligans, they managed to make it sound like the Chinese New Year, which is brilliant. It corners brilliantly, the brakes work, and then some. They've been specially modified to make sure this thing does stop immensely well. And it handles beautifully, but at the same time, it's very comfortable. When you want it to be quiet, it will be, and when you want it to be a hooligan, it'll be that as well. It is basically the every car. In the spec we have it in, we've got bigger wheels and tyres, lots of lights, and proper stealth blackout. It's really cool. It's the kind of thing you could drive through anywhere, and unless you had the noise button on, so it was spitting out all manner of dirty, angry noise, no one would really notice you. It would be like a big Range Rover shaped shadow squirreling through the background. I like this. This is good fun. Finally, the Jaguar Cx75, the car that would have been up there with the Ferrari LaFerrari, McLaren P1 and Porsche 918 if it wasn't killed. In its normal trim, the one we have, it's a hybrid petrol-electric setup with nearly 1,000 brake horsepower. Now this and one of the other hero cars from the film are actually repainted versions of the prototypes of what could have been Jaguar's Halo hypercar. I've driven this exact car before. This is prototype number 4. When I had it, it was silver, and it made me do this face. 5 more CX75s were made for the film, except they were cars made to look like this with, well, the famous 5-litre supercharged V8 with 550 horsepower in it. Now that's an engine we know and love very, very dearly. It is epic. That's not what I've got today. I have the full-fat hybrid hypercar, the car that could have been. I've been told there's been a lot of interest in it since Jaguar started punting this around with all the publicity for Spectre. Now, if you want a bit more of a detailed thing of what it's like to drive, there is our full film on the CX75, but this is what a 30-mile-an-hour stint in a proper Jag Cx75 hybrid hypercar is like. As you can no doubt hear, it's quite noisy, but that's 1.6 litres of power making lots and lots of noise. Kicks out about 500 horsepower with all the gubbins on it, and then there's the electric stuff that will push this thing into the distance at a scary, scary rate of knots. It is mammothly quick. Up to 30, of course. It can go faster. I've done it. I did 189, 190 in one of these, which still remains the fastest I've ever driven. Jaguar's chief test driver, Mike Cross, took me out in one, and we did a shade over 200, even though the speedo only went to 198. Why? Well, because they never thought they'd build a car that would do more than that. Who can blame them? It's a silly speed. The gearbox really doesn't like going at low speed, and it's quite aggressive. So if we change down from 4th to 3rd, there's a bit of a jolt, and when you change up again, there we go, nice big, proper jolt. The steering feels nice and light, and the visibility, oddly, is really good for a hypercar. You can see a little bit out the back. I've mostly got spoiler at the moment. The wing mirrors provide plenty of viz, and the interior itself is very pleasant. I love the way it looks. It's nice and carbon fibre-y. You can tell there's bits of Jag everywhere. I recognise that centre console from an F-Type, and those dials from the XE, and those buttons from the F-Type. But that doesn't matter, because this was never supposed to be a car for the public. This was going to be another stage in this car's evolution. And I'll tell you what, it's a crying shame they didn't build it, because I bet you any money they'd sell out like hotcakes. Now, at full chat, this thing sounds and feels incredible, but at low speed, if the gearbox was a little less angry, well, it actually would be quite comfy round town. The ride isn't too bad. It's lacking a bit of NVH and sound deadening, so you can hear stones and everything bouncing round outside it. But again, it's a prototype, and you've got to forgive it for that. This thing, even at 30 miles an hour, feels as special as it looks. This is a truly wonderful experience. Today, I am a very, very lucky boy, and I cannot wait to see what this thing does in Spectre. I really can't.
So there we have it, a brief stint with the 3 Bond baddie cars. From the short time I've had with them, they're all pretty good, but let's not forget what they're going up against. The Aston Martin DB10, a V8 powered custom built supercar just for Bond himself. I wonder how they'll fare.